some people who do not engage in that kind of personality bashing, who somehow manage to stay above it, but almost everybody manages to get down into this. The reason why I think that happens is that UFOs are something that the majority of people in the country seem so anxious to want to ignore or to ridicule or get rid of in some sort of way that the researchers in the field think that they have to be perfect. And as they try to be perfect, they end up taking some kind of extremist positions that will never allow themselves to admit that even some little part of what they've done is wrong. This ends up then when somebody comes back and tries to mention, perhaps even in a nice way, that some part of what they have done is wrong, it becomes very personal with them. I think the other reason why it happens all the time is that most of the folks who are doing research in UFOs are amateurs. And I don't use that word in any pejorative sense. I'm using it in the old English word of people who love what they're doing, but they're not doing the thing that's an academic style. And because of that, it just creates an environment that maximizes all the tiniest little errors to the worst possible ends, and it really hurts the field getting any kind of credibility.
Well, and maybe adding to it all is disinformation. Is there or is there not, in your opinion, an active disinformation campaign by the government or any other agency or peoples? Is there a lot of disinformation, intentional disinformation out there?
Well, that's a tougher one to know because the people doing the disinformation, if they are professionals and they're very good at it. But there are known cases of UFO researchers themselves who have created disinformation for whatever crazy reasons they had going on in their head. Also, when you look at the Roswell investigation, there are hints in various places up and down the line that there's been some disinformation and some research blocking going on there. But if you're talking about the big guys in the Pentagon-shaped building and that outfit, that's harder to document because those people are good at what they do.
I've got to ask, what is cryptozoology?
Cryptozoology is, that means hidden animal forms. And so that's the group of people who's headed by Richard Greenwell in Tucson, Arizona, and Grover Krantz at Washington State, and Roy Mackle at Chicago, and that they look for the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and the Bomble Snowman, dinosaurs in Africa, etc.
All right. I just wanted to know, and then just down below it is something that really piques my interest. It's simply entitled Disappearing Stars, and I have a man who calls me on my syndicated radio show and is doing research into precisely that, disappearing stars. He claims that stars at different moments actually do, for varying periods of time, disappear. What do you know about that?
Well, for one thing, there is a known astronomical phenomenon which causes a star to seem to dim out to us. These are extreme variable stars, and that they go from a very high magnitude to a very low one as part of a cycle that probably signals the end of their life. But that's probably not the most interesting kind of disappearing star.
No, this man is referring to ones that disappear and then at the same intensity later reappear, and he has a certain theory about that.
Oscillating stars would in fact do that, and it would be a known phenomenon that would be occurring probably near the end of a star's life as a variable. But the things that are more puzzling to standard science anyway are cases where you have a very accurate century who everything else on his maps looked like it couldn't be better, and yet here will be a rather prominent star sitting there and we can't find it anymore. So there seems to be a case of a star that really did just disappear, and what in the world could be going on there, no one knows.
All right. I would like to get to the telephones, if I could. We have a lot of people who would like to talk to you, Doctor.
Oh, you're in the show. It's fine by me.
All right, good. Let's get to a few questions. Wild card line 3, good evening. You're on the air in Las Vegas with Michael Swords, Dr. Michael Swords.
Hello, Art and Michael Swords. I've got kind of a two-part question. First, with the so-called technology that these aliens have, How come they're crashing on, like Roswell? And the second part of the question is, are these people forcibly being told to keep quiet? Maybe, due to threat of personal injury or scandal or that type of thing, Art. Now, I'll listen off the air.
I'm not sure I have the second part of what people are you referring to, sir?
Oh, the people of Roswell.
Oh, I see.
The witnesses and all that.
All right. That is a good question. Thank you. First of all, Doctor, his question, if they have all this technology, why are they crashing?
Well, from what I can tell from looking at the literature of crashes, there's probably only been one crash. The second thing I would say is that we've got a lot of pretty clever technology, too, and we make all kinds of foul-ups. I would assume that Murphy will continue to live in outer space for time immemorial. The third thing is it's suggested that the Roswell event occurred during a rather large high-voltage thunderstorm. It could possibly be that this thing merged into that without really knowing that it could get electronics glitches in it by a direct strike. But the fourth thing to really say is, well, why sit around and speculate when we don't know what their technology is? Let's just go with the empirical evidence as we find it. Empirical evidence seems to indicate something very strange crashed. Now, as far as that other question was concerned about the
people being threatened or shut up.
Threatened or not, there's a lot of evidence that people were threatened in Roswell, and especially the civilians, very severely threatened, kind of embarrassingly threatened from your and my viewpoint as an American, like we wouldn't do that to the citizens. But they, of course, are now just angry at this stage in life. But
well, you said there's a lot of evidence. Can you give an example when you say there's evidence they were threatened? For example, what?
Well, let's say you could go to perhaps 6 or 8 people down in the Roswell area right now and ask them what had happened with their father and mother or themselves, if they're very much of an oldster still around, that caused them to have all this nervousness after this event was over, and they will tell you all, even though they don't know one another necessarily, that they got these similar messages from the government telling them that they were not supposed to talk to this, or there was going to be harm done to their family, and in the case of the parents to the children, or the people who are going to be taken away and they never see them again. I mean, outrageous sounding stuff. As far as the military people are concerned, the military people mostly don't feel threatened. They just simply feel that they have made a personal duty vow and that they're not going to break it, and that since their commanding officer is now dead, why they can't find someone who will be able to relieve them of their vow.
Presume for a moment all of this is true. The government is covering it up. They know. If you personally had all of the evidence you needed, and you could have a news conference, and you could beyond any shadow of a doubt announce to the world that, oh yes, it's real, oh yes, they've been here, here's the proof, would you release it?
I might give... That's a question that's gone through my mind quite a bit, because there's about 12 or 15 different reasons why you might not want to release it.
Exactly.
And all these things involve some pretty serious stuff about government reaction, people reaction, economic reaction, etc. to these things. And I might possibly give the government one last chance to explain to me why I shouldn't release it. Try to get in contact with them and say, this is something I've got. Of course, I'd protect myself on that, but I might give them one last shot to try to explain to me why I shouldn't be doing that.
And if they were to produce studies that showed you that the American people would react very poorly, that it would be disruptive of the entire social structure, that religion would be in danger of collapse and so forth, would that be enough?
If they could prove that to me, I think I'd swallow it. But it's my belief that they can't prove that to me. Richard Hall has recently asked a bunch of us to write some essays on this exact topic, and I've gone down through the whole list of things, and I could see their reasoning for not wanting to release the information. I think right now we're at a stage where probably releasing the information would be the better thing to do.
have we been in a period of time with all of these motion pictures and all the rest of it, and even this type of show, where we are, in essence, preparing the American people to receive that information without going off the deep end?
Yes and no on that. Shows like yours, probably yes, for most of the speakers on the show, but the no part is the abductions part. And unless people like John Mack are correct, and this is some kind of a benign thing, the Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs scenario, this thing being kind of horrible, is precisely the thing that would not want you to release information that this is real and it's going on and you can get plucked at any time and nobody has a defense against it.
All right. Then that brings up another good question. With everything you've looked at, would you say this is in all likelihood something that is, as far as we're concerned, horrible if we knew about it, or is it basically benign?
It's my guess that, and this is just a guess, and for goodness sakes, don't rate this as anything more important than one person's opinion, but the guess is that because human beings do not seem to have been deliberately harmed in some physical way, now admittedly there are some possible exceptions to that in some of the claimed cases, but I still think that some of that stuff is pretty loose as far as the claims. But I would say that the worst case scenario that I see so far would be of some self-centered group of individuals, ETs or whatever, that were using human emotions in some kind of a way, but did not intend any kind of a permanent harm to the host. And so because we have been able to live with the shadow of the atomic bomb hanging over our head, I'm not so sure that we could live with the shadow of this hanging over our head, knowing that we're going to get up in the morning and we're going to get basically another form of abuse after a while.
Yeah, plus I suppose the conjecture that if they have this technology and meant us harm, we'd be harmed.
Yeah, and unless for some reason they want some other kind of thing out of us first and then still would be looking for harm afterwards. There's always a possibility.
All right. Line 1, good evening. You're on the air with Dr. Swords, who is in Michigan.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
I heard it's very interesting that you brought that particular part up. It wasn't exactly what I called about, but I had a chance to talk to my grandmother a while back, who remembers the night of the War of the Worlds radio show.
Yes.
And I think the biggest answer to your question about why they don't tell anybody is look at the reaction to that. I mentioned that to you once before, but the interesting information that I didn't have on that at that time was that people were killing themselves and killing their children because they really thought that that these beings were visiting Earth.
Well, of course, if you ever heard that radio show, it was awful. I mean, they were zapping people, eating people, people. It was not a benign visit. So that was then, and that is an interesting subject. Well, I'll ask the doctor about it in a moment.
The thing on that, though, that I want to elaborate on, Art, is that, maybe the times have changed and our technology has gotten a little bit better, but human nature is human nature. I mean, if I were out in the, and it seems really funny to me that the only people that really get a chance to experience this kind of stuff is Billy Joe Bob, who lives, out in Boo-Foo land. The thing that really gets me about is human nature is human nature. He's going to feel, I need to protect myself. I've got a gun, bang, or, whatever else. I can't really tell you of very many people who are going to sit back with open arms and say, come on in, have some tea, tell me about where you're from, and that sort of thing. I think people are going to be really on the defensive. And as far as, all the movies coming out in this radio show, I really think that these kind of things can desensitize people on a lot of issues, but I don't think this is one of them.
All right, do you have a specific question, or?
Well, I would like him to comment on that.
All right, we will do that. Thank you. Doctor, I guess he's saying that you can't